When you write this spec script, making sure that it stays in the show's voice is vital. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Megan and I post new videos every Wednesday. This week I wanted to talk to you guys about my tips for writing spec scripts. So I'm currently writing my second spec script and it can definitely be really daunting. And I know that spec scripts aren't really the norm nowadays, but there are definitely certain situations where you need them, like competitions or fellowships or things like that, where it's really good to know what needs to be done a little bit differently and how you can best prepare and then execute writing your spec. The first thing that I think is super important is making sure that you watch the entire show completely, all the way through. I don't mean, oh, okay, well, I've seen the whole show. You need to rewatch it really intentionally and be paying attention to all the little details and all of the little important things. Of course, this is easier for a shorter show, but even if you have a show that's 5 or 6 seasons, you can't watch the entire thing, watch a good amount of it. You really want to get fully engrossed in the show and feel like you're just adding on and like you're almost in that writer's room. While you're watching, it's also really helpful if you can take notes of anything you notice in the story, about the characters, about different things that tend to happen a lot, stylistic choices. And for me personally, I just had a section where I was planning out the script, and at the top I just put watch notes and wrote down anything I noticed. And that helped me a lot. I could go back to those while I was actually writing the script or even just making the outline. Anything that I thought might be fun to do a callback to, I could put there. And that was really, really helpful to have those all in one place and have, you know, if I had an idea, I could look at that and be like, okay, does that align with what I saw when watching the show? So that way you don't have to constantly actually go back to the show if you're just trying to think about something really quick after you've already done your watch through. Another thing that it definitely takes a good amount of time, but it can be really, really helpful, is to go through and write down things like the scene breakdowns, the act breaks, all of that. You don't need to do this for every episode, but 3 to 5 episodes could be helpful to get, especially if you've got a longer show, like more like 5, 6 episodes for a shorter show, like 3 should be fine. And basically what I did is I wrote down which episode. I kind of gave sort of a description of like what scene it was so I would know looking back to get an idea of like, okay, what context is this? And then I literally just wrote the time code for when it started and the time code for when it stopped. And that gave me a really good idea of the kind of lengths of scenes and just the format that the show has and the pacing that the show has. And that was really helpful. And then I also went through and identified where about I would put the act breaks, and that also helps me a lot when identifying the act breaks for my own spec. You also really need to remember that you're writing in a show's voice. When you're writing in an original pilot or a feature, your voice is kind of the most important thing there. You're writing in your own voice. But when it comes to a show and writing a spec script, you're writing in that already established show's voice. And that's part of why spec scripts are so valuable, is because they show how you can write in somebody else's voice. Because especially when you're working on a TV show, you need to be able to write in the showrunner's voice. Your role in that room is making that showrunner's vision and creative vision come to life. And a show has to have a cohesive voice. So if you can't write in a voice that matches to a show, then it's going to be really difficult to not only get a job, but keep a job. So just remember that when you write this spec script, making sure that it stays in the show's voice is vital. And the last thing I'll say is just to plan your spec really carefully. The more planning you can do going into it, the less daunting it'll feel when you go to try and write a show that already exists. It's hard enough to write your own original idea, but when it comes to writing somebody else's show and to try and make it match as best you can, it can definitely be overwhelming. And the more planning you do beforehand, the easier it'll feel, and it'll feel a little less intimidating. And just remember that it's okay if it's intimidating, just keep pushing through, keep doing different drafts, and you just have to kind of trust in yourself and pay attention to what you're doing and what's working and what's not, and just be really honest with yourself. And just as a little throwaway, make sure that the show you spec is something you really love and are passionate about, because if you're writing a spec for just some random show that you're like, okay, it's fine, that will come through in the writing. It will come through in what kind of idea you have for an episode. It will come through in the way you write it, the way you write the characters. It won't feel like you're embodying them. So whatever you spec, just make sure you love it. And also a couple tips for if you're not as familiar with specs. A spec should be of a show that is currently on air, that is currently having episodes released. You don't want to write a spec of Friends or even a show that just ended, because it needs to be something that can continue with, and people don't want to read specs of shows that are long finished, especially. And some people say that you should only write spec episodes that take place within a season. Some people say you should only write specs of season finale episodes or the first episode of a season. Just write what comes naturally to you. If you've got a story that you think is going to work with a show, go for it. Take that risk. Either way, different people have different opinions, and if you think you've got the right story, trust your gut. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. If you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see videos like this or anything else on my channel, let me know in the comment section. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to my channel and press the bell so you don't miss any of my new videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye!